Hi, I'm Ross Brown. Happy New Year. Welcome to Beer O'Clock. This is my first video recording of a beer review. It's largely unscripted. I would say 99% of it is unscripted, so I am going to go with the flow. I'm going to be reviewing two beers today that are very similar, and I only have one bottle of each of them. So if I mess up this recording, we have what we have. Both of them are what I consider really good winter beers. They are Imperial Stouts, usually in the colder months, particularly in Ottawa. I don't tend to go for the lighter session ales. I like something with a lot more body, and I find that a good stout will satisfy me very well on these cold days. So what I have with me today, I have a 2013 St-Ambroise Russian Imperial Stout. It's a special reserve. It's been aged in bourbon barrels. And I also have a bottle of local beer that was given to me a few years ago by a friend of mine, J.P. Fournier, who is the owner of Turtle Island Brewing. This is his 2013 Maple Imperial Stout. He gave it to me about a year after he originally released it, and I thought I would lie it down for a bit and see how it aged. If you've read my blog in the past, you'll know that I have written about Imperial Stouts before, and the one that I wrote about the most was a vintage Imperial Stout. It was a 2005 Caterina Serena, which was done by a local brewer, a good friend of mine from the Scotch-Irish Brewing Company, Perry Mason. And that one, when he gave it to me, he told me he thought it would age for 10 years, and I put it to the test and kept it for 10 years. And over the course of its lifetime, I did a few reviews on it. And when I finally said goodbye to it in 2015, it was still quite drinkable, quite enjoyable. So let's take a look at these two. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go through the general format that I do when I do a written blog post, and we're going to look at its appearance, how it smells, and how it tastes. Now obviously you're just going to have to trust what I experience, but that's what I'll do, and then I'll give my overall impressions of both of them. Let's start with the St-Ambroise. I was first introduced to this brewery many years ago when I had their oatmeal stout, and I found it was one of my favorite stouts. It blew Guinness out of the water because it had such good body. There was a bit of smoke to it, and the oatmeal gave it this richness that, quite frankly, was hard to beat not until Mill Street came along and came out with their Cobblestone Stout, and that one became a close contender to the oatmeal stout that I still love today. Every year, Macallan will come out with a Imperial Stout. They'll put the age on the label. They are good for lying down for several years, and as I said, this is a 2013, so we're now just into 2017. It's just over 3 years old, and let's open it up. So I've had it in the fridge for about an hour. I tend to keep most of my beer in my basement that remains at a fairly constant temperature throughout the year. So I put this one in the fridge just to bring it up a bit, because in all honesty, if many months ago I thought I would review JP's stout, and it's been in the fridge for quite a while. So I've had it actually sitting outside of the fridge for at least an hour, so it would get more to room temperature. So let's listen to see if the 3 years that it's been lying in my basement has affected how much fizz it has. It's a little fizz. Let's see how she pours. It's still coming to a head, very thin head. that has a nice cap on it. So what I'm seeing is a deep taupe head, almost like if you add a little bit of cream to your coffee. A few bubbles clinging to the side of the glass. And the color, if I hold it up to light, well, I can't see any light coming through it. So what I would describe this as is a very deep walnut color, and it's not letting any light through. Oh, chocolate hit me right off the start, and I love chocolate in a stout. There's a faint trace of licorice. When I think of imperial stouts, I often think that you have a lot of black licorice, and I like black licorice, but sometimes in an imperial stout I find it too much. So if you just get a trace of it, and especially on the palate, if when you're tasting it you're not being overwhelmed with these really strong licorice flavors, that's what I favor. You may favor something differently, but I don't like my mouth to be assaulted by any kind of flavor in anything I put in my mouth. And when I'm trying to enjoy a beer, if it's overwhelming, chances are I may not try that beer again. But I'm getting, like I say, the chocolate. There's a slight trace of licorice. I can get a little bit of oak, but I think after the 3 years it's mellowed out. And actually on the canister that it comes in, it doesn't say that it's aged in bourbon barrels. It says that it's in bourbon wood. So for all I know, they could have taken shavings of a bourbon barrel and put it in while they were fermenting it. But I like to think that they probably fermented it in a bourbon barrel. It's mellowed. I'm getting almost a bit of tobacco and almost a little bit of cedar. I don't know how people do their tastings, but my background in any kind of alcoholic education, I did take a sommelier course at Algonquin College here in Ottawa, and I've applied what I learned from that course into my beer tasting. So when I take a sip of a beer, I'll first of all wash my mouth around with it, swallow it, and then on a second sip I'll tend to almost whistle backwards, sucking in air and drawing it around so that you get more of the flavor. If you haven't done that, give it a try. So there's not any chocolate that I can detect in the taste of it. I am getting a little bit of licorice. I am getting wood notes, cedar. There's a bit of an espresso coffee to it. So it's a very nice beer. Now, they say it's 9.2% alcohol by volume. So it's not something that you're going to sit down for an evening with and put a few back. Certainly not if you plan to do any driving or operating any heavy machinery. This is something that you would want to savor. If you have a bottle of it, now would be a good time to open it up and enjoy it. Although I do find that there is still a lot of structure in this glass. So I would say that you could probably lay it down for another year or two. If you have one, consider doing that as well. So as you can see, I have a dedicated glass for my St-Ambroise. It was given to me as a gift when I purchased a number of bottles at a Quebec beer store. I don't have any Turtle Island glass, and as you can see, the bottle that was given to me has no label. So To keep a relatively shaped glass for an Imperial Stout, I have opted off with my Bose glass, and we'll just turn their logo away. Maybe I'll do a video review of one of their beers. So I'm going to now listen to this bottle as I open it to see if there's any kind of fizz. As I said, it was a fairly quiet one, but it did exist when I opened up this one. So I don't know if you can hear it. There was a lot of fizz, actually. I think there was more fizz in this one than the St-Ambroise. So this is promising. Now I think JP says that he used 2 grades of maple syrup, and so to bring the sugar up, I think it probably helps preserve it as well. Let's see how she pours. You know, there's a good forming head. It's more pronounced. I don't know if I'm pouring faster in this one than I did for the St-Ambroise. But as you can see, there is actually a very healthy head on that. This is encouraging. Okay, what I'm getting is... Actually, I wish I had some pancakes for this one, because I'm getting strong maple syrup, and it's the type of maple syrup that I like, where it's not this really sweet smelling maple syrup, but you get almost a bit of burnt bark with it, a little bit of smokiness. So I would almost imagine that the maple syrup, if it was in a bottle next to me, would be of a darker color. So you can see there are a lot of bubbles forming on this. I'm wondering if maybe I've opened it too soon. So maple syrup is what I'm getting. I'm also getting a bit of caramel. A bit of caramel as well. I can say that with confidence because this being, just after the holiday season, I did receive a lot of chocolate caramels, kind of my favorite. There is a lot of sweetness in this. I'm saying it with a tone that is not true to how I'm feeling about this. It's a nice sweetness. It's not cloying. I've had some very sweet strong beers from people such as Southern Tier when they make their creme brulee stout, and that's something that is definitely a beer to share with, because it comes in a large 700 milliliter bottle. And the sweetness is so rich that drinking one by myself, I find I feel ill after it. This is sweet, but it's backed right up with strong prunes, which is another characteristic that I find in an Imperial Stout. There is a lot of body, there's a lot of complexity in this beer. It's got a bit of smokiness to it. I don't know if JP had fermented it in wood. When he sent me notes on it, he didn't seem to indicate that. But this is an 11.5% alcohol by volume beer. So this is definitely something you're going to want to settle in for the evening or afternoon and enjoy, and then maybe nap. I'm going to just take another sip because I'm still gathering my thoughts on it. I have to say congratulations to JP, because this is a real heavy hitter of an Imperial Stout. I think, again, I could have kept this down in my basement for at least another year, 2 years, and still had something with a head and with structure and character. It's quite complex, because, as I said, you get hit right away with the rich birch bark like maple syrup, birch bark and maple bark of maple syrup. There's the prunes that come through. There's a little bit of a tobacco, but it's rich. It's full. It's something that I could see myself sitting down with on a cold winter's evening by the fireplace and just taking in. So my overall impression of each of these beers, St-Ambroise, I've had many different years of their limited edition Imperial Stout, and this one holds up solidly with all of those. It's got the complexity, it's got the richness, it's mellowed a bit from a younger Imperial Stout, but this is very easy to drink. If you like Imperial Stouts, this would definitely be something that you'd want to keep an eye out for. But as I said, if you have a bottle of this and you're wondering whether or not you can open it now, absolutely, you can open it now. But you could also hang on to it for another year or two and then impress friends with, look, I've got this really old bottle of beer. Let's see how it tastes. JP, when he made this beer, Turtle Island Brewing was quite young, but he's always been an ambitious person, had big dreams of owning his own brewery, and I think this shows how his efforts have paid off. It's a very rich, complex, nicely sweet beer. Something that, as I said, you would enjoy gladly on a cold winter's night. And that's all I really have to say on it. It's a very good beer. I really enjoyed it. As far as my Beer Clock ratings are concerned, if you want to know how my ratings are, you can look at the side of my blog, because I show how I compare things on a scale from 1 to 5 stars. 3 stars is a good beer. Sometimes it's as good a beer or better than a 5-star because it's exactly what it says it's going to be. I would say a 3-star beer would be this one. This is an Imperial Stout that has all the flavors and characteristics that I come to expect from one. Having aged for 3 years, it's mellowed and, in my opinion, makes it a little more drinkable. I would give JP 4 stars for his. And I'm not saying that because I like him. I'm not saying it because he's a friend. I'm not saying it because he gave me the bottle for free. I'm saying it because for a relatively young brewery, he's come out with an Imperial Stout that has the characteristics of an Imperial Stout. It's aged very well, but he's also added the 2 types of maple syrup, giving it added complexity, and they stand out without overpowering everything. So it's a treat to drink. So this is my first video review blog, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will possibly do more in the future. I will remember to turn off my phone so we don't hear it tweeting every 2 minutes. But I hope this has been helpful to you, and for Beer Clock, cheers.